Hello, everybody. So Rob Hashiba is with me, and we are talking about some issues in linguistics or language studies.
Language studies, yes. Okay. So the topic I would like to talk today is about, I guess, how languages have an effect on your personality, and that's the broader vision. And getting into specifics, it's how such, I guess, certain rhythms and certain intonations would affect your train of thought or or your overall character. And I have learned along my learning journey, learning trip, that definitely when you use one type of language, it would definitely have a certain kind of effect on your train of thought, which some concepts in one language might be, I guess, be able to express in one language, but it'll be different to express that into another language. Let's say if it's Japanese, if there's a certain kind of concept, you want to explain it in English, but it'll take you years and years. Maybe you would never be able to explain that. And
Okay.
Yeah. So starting from that, that would definitely have an influence on what kind of character you would have. And okay. Sorry. Yeah. Please.
I was trying to think, what would be a good example of showing how language affects your, personality or being? And I have one example, actually. When I write a business email, sometimes it's easier in English to say, can I... to negotiate, maybe like I need to get paid more, and then it's easier to express that maybe in English. In Japanese, I don't even know how to start because there's some excessive politeness required, like for business communication and such. Would that be a good example or different?
That's actually a very good example. So for me, I grew up in English-speaking countries, and in English, it's rather easier to kind of make certain kind of request or to make an assertion of a certain topic. But let's say in Japanese, it's very difficult. You really you don't want to be direct. People say it's indirect, but there's probably another I guess explanation, like to express this type of feeling, but there's a different way you would want to make yourself assertive or have an active voice when you are talking in Japanese. And being brought up from in Western countries, I have been trying to pick that up in Japanese. And that's exactly what you probably explained it better than I did.
But I think I have to think about this topic a little bit more because I feel like there's something deep, behind this difference. And just immediately, I feel like when I speak Japanese in business situations, I have to be very humble.
Yes.
I feel like I don't exist. And is that part of the language or part of this culture?
I think it's both. I think in terms of linguistics, language is just one expression of culture. I think that's, I forgot if it was Saeed, somebody.
Sorry, I had to attend to my dog, so we just came back to this conversation. But please continue.
So I think it was Sapir Wolf. I think it's his view was that language is just an extension of culture, and that's it's culture comes first, and then the language develops after that. And I actually kind of lost track of what we were talking about.
I think what I was saying before what you started saying, I was saying something like, in Japanese, you have to have this excessive politeness, you have to be
Yes.
humble, and we can't even propose, like,
Yes.
uh, you know, uh, how do you say, estimate of how much it costs, and if you want to get more, and it's
Yes.
kind of hard to negotiate.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Japanese, yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes. So yeah, I think it has to do more with culture. The history of culture, and in a formal setting, culture definitely has a big influence on how you would speak.
So that means for us Japanese to speak English freely, we really have to kind of overcome that kind of a Japanese cultural thing. But I guess
Mm-hmm.
because some people may try to speak English, but with like still being, I mean, you may be still influenced by how you think in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that means that when you want to learn how to speak in English, you also want to be able to learn how to communicate. But I think, again, the structure of the language, it's not, I mean, maybe it's easier to speak English because just speaking in English, then because there's no keigo, and you have to start a sentence with a subject. In
Mm-hmm.
Japanese, it's sometimes even hard to call somebody by name if that person is higher in terms of status.
Yes.
But in English, you really have to say you.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just learning English is kind of already kind of helping you to communicate in the English way. The other day, I was talking to my colleague, and she's a lot younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's like 20 years younger than me, but still we can talk in English. I mean, she's an American, and there is no keigo kind of barrier in between, so we can kind of really freely communicate about things. So that's like the advantage of English.
Yes. Yeah, I would totally agree. However, I have come across a very interesting example. Quite not once, but more than once. You have been away from Japan for about 25 years, I think. Yeah.
25, 26, 27, yes.
But there are actually many Americans and many, English native speakers who live in Japan for an extensive amount of time. And one time I actually had this conversation with an American executive, and we were talking, and he started complaining at one point. He says, he was probably on the board member, and he had to attend to a CEO or the president or someone higher up. And he was complaining that the assistant in Japan, that is like a female assistant, the point was that she called him by his first name, and he didn't like that.
So he is a Japanese person or an American?
He's American. He's American. He's lived in Japan for quite a long time. And he just said, you don't address somebody in the board member by the first name.
We usually use first names.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or maybe he was talking about the tone of voice. But
maybe. No, but
yes.
Maybe the only thing I can guess is that sometimes initially you say Mr. Smith, and then you're gonna say, "Can I call you John?"
Yes.
Maybe there's some step that you need as a courtesy, as opposed to all of a sudden start calling you, John.
Yes.
And I think that's the same kind of thing that you do in Spanish or in French. Initially, you want to say like usted, which is like in Spanish, a polite form of you. And then you kind of quickly go into a more friendly way and say, can I call you, tu instead of usted? And you do the same thing in French.
Yes.
Maybe you need that kind of a ritual in the beginning. In fact, when I started talking to you today,
Mm-hmm.
I said, so I call you Rob.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my way of, I want to respect you. I could call you Mr. Hashiba, but
Yes.
can I just call you Rob? So
Yes.
maybe there's, even in English, we think everything is so free and friendly, but there's some kind of a ritualistic thing.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe, I'm guessing.
I would totally agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so, but this, how language affects personality. If a Japanese person is learning English, I think he or she should learn not just the language, but also understands the differences of
Yes.
this kind.
Yes. Yes.